Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the 30th 40K tutorial. This is a sound that was requested by StatikDynamik, spelled with some K's. And this is me trying to resynthesize the bass sound from the Seinfeld theme. Now, this is actually, I went about it in a way that's way harder than what you probably would want to do. And this is what I got. It's not super great, but it's still pretty cool, right? So it's sort of close. In a world where anyone can just have a sampled bass, this is not super duper important, but as it's sort of an exercise, it's kind of interesting to think about. So let's talk about how I went about doing this. I have in here at Edison a recording I made of the theme. And this is the beginning where it's just the bass and that little thing happening with it. When I play it, you can see it happening in the EQ over here. Now this is super important because what I did is I isolated one note and I looked very carefully at what the harmonics were doing. And I took this information, I looked at, and this is the EQ where I'm playing it. And what I did was I went in the pluck in Harmor and very carefully etched out basically the behavior of the sound. Sort of. Now, a funny thing about the Seinfeld theme is that it was actually done, I think, on a keyboard. It was done on it was a sampled bass on a keyboard, like a synthesizer keyboard, and something someone played. You can kind of tell when you listen to the very beginning where like the slide notes and stuff are, because the way they slide is not what a bass guitar would sound like if you slide it. And of course, like I said earlier, you know, you could just get the Scarby bass from Contact or something and it would be like identical. But because I felt like being smart and cool, this is kind of how I did it. I separate this into two parts. And I used the B part because if you notice in the note that's being played here, it's kind of like ghosty frequencies that are happening here are these frequencies sliding down. It's not really doing it in the higher frequencies. So I split up the higher and the lower into two parts. And in the lower, I made it so that it's pitch slid a little bit. And I just totally realized something that would have made this a lot cooler. I just made it infinitely better just now. And how did I do that? Well, I used the detune option and I used the divider. And what this does is it does the opposite of what the main detune does. The main detune in Harmor moves the harmonics away from the fundamental, and the divider, what that does is it brings it to the fundamental. And in the case, it does it by whole numbers. So right now, it's crunched down a bit. That sounds so much better than what I was just doing for the last like half an hour. But yeah. That's pretty all right. And I actually did that for the second part because if you look at the actual, well, actually, if you look at the lower note here, look at how many harmonics there are. Like that's actually a bit more, and they're spaced a bit closer together than like your average saw wave. And that's a behavior of how strings react, like a piano or a bass guitar or a regular guitar. That's how that behaves. So replicating that with Harmor by using the detune divider option, which I've now done on both parts. And of course, I'm using the pluck to do this. And there's the pluck shape option. What this is essentially doing, you can see with the behavior in the spectral view here. What this is saying is that this line and the level represent how long it takes for that particular harmonic to decay. So if I have a huge amount here, it's saying that those harmonics take a while to decay. So pretty much every harmonic is decaying a lot faster with the exception of these guys. Also in the A part, I went to the local EQ and I kind of brought down a lot of the lower harmonics. Because even though with the plucking is plucking them gone completely, there's still actually a bunch of action in there because it's still on, even if it's the tiniest amount. So turning it all the way off so the lower harmonics can be governed by B part. Man, that detune option really just made it. Notice, however, that when I bring them together, it actually the pluck option doesn't change the shape, but the pluck, like the little area where it is, still moves. because this graph here is how long it takes to decay and then what harmonic it is. And now the detune option, the detune divider, is bringing the harmonics down, but those are still the harmonics that are there. They're still only the 516. They're just being compressed down twice as much. So that's why when I brought it down, I had to move this guy. To be in the correct location. Another big tip off that this wasn't a real bass guitar is that notice how the harmonics they're moving for every single note, and really the harmonics only move for each individual string. So unless all of these notes are being played on entirely different strings, they wouldn't move around like this. The overall, like the fundamental tones would move around, but the harmonic tones would actually they would sort of stay in the same location because the harmonics are going to be the same for that string, not necessarily for that note. So that's more guitar stuff. But yeah, it's kind of fun giving this a shot. This worked out a lot better than I thought it would. I thought I'd do something silly. Anyway, the patch for this will be available to download in the description. The original will also be linked in the description in case you haven't heard the Seinfeld theme. And if you'd like to make a request, the link to the Reddit thread is also in the description where you can do that. And if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.